We're here at Union Square in New York City. Several organizations have come here today to host an anti-war rally. One such organization is DRUM, or Desis Rising Up and Moving.
We are here to protest the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Libya. And we stand with our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community and say no, no, never.
Monami Maulik founded DRUM 10 years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to found this organization?
Sure. I grew up in New York City and I moved here. I migrated from India when I was 5 years old. I grew up in the Bronx in a very working class community of color. And I saw that there were more and more migrants coming from South Asia who are low-wage workers, people who are taxi drivers, who are domestic workers, who are street vendors, people who work in restaurants. And it's very different from the migrants who came from South Asia in the 1960s and 70s who were professionals. And growing up here, I realized that we needed to organize our own community, that we had a new generation of working class migrants who had serious issues with immigration problems, with harassment by police, especially after 9/11 as Muslims, with the public school system in inner city communities that's broken and that's not working for our children. So I decided to form the organization so we can be an organization led by low-wage, low-income South Asian immigrants in the U.S.
And what do you consider your biggest achievement so far?
I think one of our biggest achievements is that we are the first mass-based South Asian low-wage workers organization in the U.S. that's continued for 10 years with youth and with adults. We want to see many, many, many more organizations like us in the U.S. as our population increases. In New York City alone, there's over 1 million South Asian workers. They're mostly undocumented. Most of them earn less than minimum wage, are heavily exploited, and are dealing with racial profiling in the last 10 years. And I think some of our other biggest victories is that we've changed local policies, we've changed national policies. We were at the forefront of ending the special registration program against Muslim boys and men in 2004 and 2005. We released dozens of detainees after 9/11 and exposed the issue of the mass arrests and deportations of Muslims. We started the first youth organizing program of South Asian low-income youth in the U.S. who are fighting public school system closures, who are winning huge victories locally. We passed the Student Safety Act in City Council. We won the saving of free metro cards and transportation for poor youth, which is a $215 million victory from New York State and city government. And we also politically organized and raised the consciousness of our community members as people who should be politically active in the U.S. and who have a voice.
We're here now with one of the DRUM activists, Qazi Fawzia Kabir. What inspired you to join DRUM?
আমি এই দেশে যখন আসি তখন আমি ছিলাম একজন আনডকুমেন্টেড ওয়ার্কার। আমি জ্যাকসন হাইট কুইন্সে একটা কাপড়ের দোকানে কাজ করতাম। সেখানে একদিন আমি এক দোকান থেকে আরেক দোকানে যাওয়ার সময় ওয়ার্কিং টাইমে অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট হই। তখন আমার অবস্থা খুব খারাপ ছিল, লাইক একটা কার আমাকে হিট করে 12 ফিট দূরে ফেলে দিয়েছে। তো পিপল আমাকে রাস্তার সাইডে নিয়ে গেছে ইনজুরি অবস্থায়। তখন ওরা ফাইন্ড আউট করার চেষ্টা করলো যে আমি কোথায় কাজ করি বা আমি কোথাকার লোক। তো ওরা ফাইন্ড আউট করলো আমি একটা দোকানে কাজ করি। মালিককে ডাকা হলো। মালিক আমার কোয়ার্কাররা যখন 911-এ কল দিতে চাইলো আমাকে হসপিটাল পাঠানোর জন্য, মালিক সেটাতে বাধা দিল, বললো যে আমি 911 কল দিতে পারবো না বিকজ আমি আনডকুমেন্টেড ওয়ার্কার। সো সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমাকে ট্যাক্সি দিয়ে হসপিটাল পাঠাইলো। আমি হসপিটালে গেলাম। হসপিটাল আমার অনেক ভালো প্রপার ট্রিটমেন্ট করলো না বিকজ আমার কোনো কাগজপত্র নাই, আমার কোনো হেলথ ইন্স্যুরেন্স নাই। তখন আমি এক্সরে করলো। এক্সরে করার পর দেখলাম আমার হাতে 6টা ফ্র্যাকচার। আমি এই অবস্থায় আবার কাজে ফেরত আসলাম। কাজে ফেরত আসার পরে মালিক বলল যে আমি আর কাজ করতে পারবো না বিকজ আমার হাত ইনজুরি। সে আমাকে ফায়ার করে দিল। তো আমি ড্রামের কথা আগেই শুনেছি, আমি ড্রামের ভলেন্টিয়ার ছিলাম, কিন্তু ওই মুহূর্তে আমি ভাবলাম যে এইরকম ইনজাস্টিসগুলোর বিরুদ্ধে আসলে আমাকে কাজ করতে হবে, নট এ ভলেন্টিয়ার, অ্যাজ এ ওয়ার্কার, অ্যাজ এ অর্গানাইজার। তখন থেকে আমি সিদ্ধান্ত নেই আমার মতো এরকম ডকুমেন্টেড ওয়ার্কাররা যেসব ইনজাস্টিসের শিকার হচ্ছে আমেরিকার মতো উন্নত দেশে, আমি এগুলা বিরুদ্ধে লড়াই করব। এবং এই জন্য আমি অ্যাজ এ ওয়ার্কার অর্গানাইজার হিসাবে ড্রামে জয়েন করি এবং কাজ করতে থাকি ওদের সাথে।
What we've been seeing since 9/11 is a increased police presence, whether it's NYPD, the FBI, or Homeland Security, or even immigration, an increased presence of policing in our communities. Some of it has been outright raids and arrests, deportations, but there has also been an increased undercover and secretive presence in terms of police sending informants and undercover agents into the community to surveil the community, to keep an eye out on what people are saying, what people are doing, and most dangerously, agents who actually go into the community and talk to people and incite people to try to get them angry and to get them to commit acts of violence. And essentially what they're doing is they themselves, the police, are creating the acts of crime so that they can then solve them and take the credit for it. And more than a good majority of the so-called terrorism cases that we've seen since 9/11 have included the use of these informants who are paid lots of money in order to make these cases. And anytime they're paid money, they're expected to produce results. So they go and target vulnerable people, whether it's young people or whether it's people with mental illnesses, people with substance abuse problems, people who need money. And in various ways, they try to develop a relationship of trust with them. And then subsequently, once they have their trust, they try to incite them to commit acts of violence or acts of terrorism. And then as soon as they say yes, they move in to arrest them. And they've been using these cases to create further fear of the Muslim community here, but also of Muslims abroad. And it provides justification for their wars abroad. And so for us, we see a clear link between the policing here at home and the wars abroad. And historically, whenever there's been a war abroad, there's a war that takes place here on the domestic front. Whether we see it in the 20s and 30s against labor unions during World War I, whether we see it during World War II against the Japanese Americans, whether we see it after that during the Cold War, or in the 80s against Central American immigrants. And now it's a turn to the Muslims, Arabs, and South Asian communities to be targeted, while our countries are being targeted abroad at the same time, whether it's Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and now Somalia and Libya. So for us, there's a critical connection. We can't oppose the wars abroad without opposing the war at home, and we can't oppose the war at home without opposing the war abroad.
And what are you doing to stand up against this?
Well, personally, we've been mainly been increasing awareness about the way that police has been acting in our communities. And again, this is also not something new. There's a historical precedence of this before in the 60s and 70s, when there was a lot of social and civil rights movements going on in the United States. They were targeted by similar policies of undercover officers under the program known as COINTELPRO, Counterintelligence Program. And they targeted the black community, the Latin American community, American Indian community, and those fighting for civil rights. And so we're seeing those same programs being instituted now. And so we're trying to increase awareness in the Muslim community, in the South Asian community, in the Arab community about how these policies are taking place, but also that they have historical precedence. And then we're trying to mobilize and organize the community to speak against it, doing know your rights training so that people know how to protect themselves, but also telling people to come out and be vocal about these policies, because the more we stay silent, the more it allows them to institute such kind of policies in our community. And they thrive on fear and people being quiet.
Drum's youth leader, Monty, will tell us a little bit about her work.
We usually work for student rights and policing in school, and also student safety, and help out colored student and the discrimination that we go through every single day in school, outside of school by NYPD, and also by SSA, student safety agents. So those are basically our main campaigns that we're working on right now.
We are here now with Shahina Parveen from Drum. What brings you here today?
आफ्टर 9/11 आपको पता है कि अमेरिका में मुसलमानों के नौजवानों पर जो भी कुछ जुल्म, नाइंसाफ़ी और जेलें और जंगें जो दूसरे हमारे मुल्कों में हो रही हैं, मैं उसके सपोर्ट के लिए यहाँ आई हूँ। मैं एक एग्जाम्पल हूँ जिसके बेटे पर झूठा टेररिज्म का इल्ज़ाम लगाया गया है। हमारी पूरी फैमिली पर ये सख्त वक्त आया, बहुत जुल्म किया गया। इसी तरह मेरी फैमिली की तरह बहुत सारी मुसलमान फैमिलियों के साथ ये हुआ है और बहुत सारे मुसलमान नौजवान जेलों में डाल दिए गए हैं झूठे टेररिज्म केसों में। तो आज मैं सबकी तरफ से बोल रही हूँ कि इस नाइंसाफ़ी को और इस जुल्म को और इन जेलों को और इन जंगों को अब बंद होना चाहिए, क्योंकि हमारे मुल्क पाकिस्तान में ड्रोन हमले हो रहे हैं जिनकी वजह से बहुत बेगुनाह मासूम बच्चे, औरतें, जवान जिनका कोई कसूर नहीं अपनी जान खो बैठे हैं। तो मैं इस वजह से यहाँ आई हूँ